Yellowstone National Park, one of America's treasures, is in shambles.
Newly installed cameras capturing an eruption from the Black Diamond Pool at Yellowstone National Park.
Yellowstone National Park, one of the United States' most treasured natural wonders, was recently and abruptly shut down following the discovery of newly formed ground cracks within its boundaries. This sudden and significant event has sent ripples through both scientific communities and the public, as Yellowstone is not just a park, but also the site of one of the most powerful geological formations on the planet, a supervolcano. The closure marked an immediate response to a development that may indicate deeper geological activity beneath the surface, triggering both concern and curiosity about what lies ahead. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. The cracks were discovered in an area near the Norris Geyser Basin, one of the most thermally active sections of the park. This region has long been known for its dramatic geothermal displays, from scalding hot springs and steaming vents to geysers erupting with violent regularity. Yet the recent emergence of fissures, some stretching for several meters, in this volatile terrain has raised urgent questions. Park officials, in coordination with geologists and the United States Geological Survey, USGS, initiated rapid investigations after the ground fractures were reported by a team of park rangers and researchers. Their immediate concern was public safety, leading to the full closure of affected areas and soon after the entire park. Yellowstone is built atop a massive caldera, a collapsed volcanic crater that forms after a major eruption, and it remains geologically active. The discovery of these cracks is not a trivial development. It suggests a possible change in subsurface dynamics. Yellowstone's magma chamber, a reservoir of molten rock lying beneath the park, is constantly monitored for signs of activity. Cracks in the surface could be an early indicator of ground deformation, often linked to pressurization below, possibly from the movement of magma or hydrothermal fluids. While scientists are careful to avoid alarmist conclusions, the sudden nature of the cracks has understandably triggered heightened scrutiny. The implications of ground cracking in a place like Yellowstone go far beyond mere surface damage. Historically, similar cracks have preceded volcanic eruptions or significant hydrothermal explosions. Though not all cracks are ominous, and many may result from natural thermal cycling, the ones observed recently appeared in clusters, spread across several miles, and some were accompanied by noticeable increases in surface temperature. Infrared scans taken by drones showed localized heat anomalies, hot spots that weren't present in previous thermal surveys. This has raised the question of whether the magma chamber is heating areas of the surface more than usual, or if pressurized steam is making its way upward, weakening the overlying rock. Adding to the mystery is the fact that Yellowstone has seen an uptick in seismic activity in recent months. Earthquakes are common in the region. The park experiences hundreds each year, but the frequency and clustering of these recent quakes have attracted special attention. Microquakes, while often imperceptible to visitors, can indicate shifting underground stress. When paired with ground fissures, this pattern becomes more concerning. It suggests that the earth beneath Yellowstone is shifting in ways that may point toward either increased geothermal instability or changes in the magma plumbing system. The decision to shut down Yellowstone was made with urgency and decisiveness. Park managers, in tandem with geophysicists, reviewed the data and opted for a complete closure rather than partial access or a wait-and-see approach. Visitors were evacuated swiftly, and roads leading into the park were blocked. Helicopters were deployed to survey the area and collect high-resolution images of the cracked zones. Satellite data is now being analyzed to determine if there's measurable uplift or subsidence, the rising or sinking of land, which could offer more clues about what's unfolding underground. Beyond the immediate concerns for safety and scientific understanding, the closure has provoked widespread speculation about what this could mean for the future of Yellowstone. The idea of a supervolcano eruption, while extremely rare and statistically improbable in the short term, looms in the public imagination like a sleeping giant. The last major eruption of Yellowstone occurred approximately 640,000 years ago. While there's no reliable timetable for when or if such an eruption might happen again, the presence of cracks now rekindles that ancient fear. that the park could someday be the site of a catastrophic natural event with global consequences. For many, the psychological impact of the park's closure is profound. Yellowstone isn't merely a geographical landmark, it's a symbol of the untamed majesty of the American landscape. Its geysers, forests, rivers, and wildlife draw millions each year. It's a place where people go to connect with the raw power of nature, to feel dwarfed by forces that predate civilization. The closure is a jarring reminder that nature, even in its most serene settings, can quickly turn unpredictable and dangerous. The visual of cracked earth splitting across once peaceful trails leaves an unsettling impression that something larger may be stirring beneath. Scientists are now poring over data with urgency. GPS monitoring stations scattered across the park are being checked for any anomalies in ground motion. Gas emissions, particularly sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide, both of which can signal increased volcanic activity, are being sampled and compared to baseline levels. So far, nothing catastrophic has been detected. But even small deviations could be significant in a region as geologically dynamic as this. The team is also looking into any changes in the park's hydrothermal features. Geysers and hot springs are often sensitive to underground shifts, and even minor changes in behavior, altered eruption intervals, new steam vents, or discoloration of waters, can be signals worth investigating. The local communities near Yellowstone are experiencing a mix of apprehension and frustration. Many depend on the park for their livelihoods, running hotels, guiding services, or restaurants that cater to the steady stream of visitors. The closure, though justified by safety concerns, represents a significant economic blow during the high season. Residents are also anxious about what might come next. Rumors and misinformation tend to spread quickly in such situations, especially when visible signs like ground cracks trigger visceral fears. The government has issued statements urging calm, emphasizing that monitoring continues and that the shutdown is precautionary. Yet, uncertainty is a breeding ground for unease. From a geological standpoint, Yellowstone is a marvel of ongoing processes. It exists because of the immense forces of plate tectonics and mantle plumes that have created a vast subterranean heat source. The magma body beneath Yellowstone is massive, tens of kilometers across, and divided into shallow and deeper sections. The shallow chamber is partially molten and responsible for the park's remarkable hydrothermal activity. It's also the section most closely monitored, as changes here can lead to surface effects. The appearance of cracks could suggest that pressure is increasing in this area, or that weaknesses in the crust are being exploited by steam or gas in search of an escape. One of the pressing challenges for scientists is distinguishing between benign geothermal shifts and those that herald a more significant event. Yellowstone has a history of periodic flare-ups, not eruptions, but episodes where seismicity increases, ground lifts slightly, and thermal areas expand or shift. These are sometimes referred to as disturbances, and while they can be alarming, they often resolve without incident. The current situation, however, is unusual due to the rapid formation and apparent extent of the cracks. That's what makes this moment so critical. The need for real-time data and thoughtful interpretation is more vital than ever. The cracks themselves are being studied using ground-penetrating radar, laser mapping, and even borehole cameras inserted into deeper sections to observe subsurface conditions. Preliminary results suggest that some of the cracks extend deeper than surface weathering would account for, and that in a few areas, the rock appears to have been weakened by internal heating. In plain terms, this could mean that the upper crust in certain zones is under stress, or being destabilized by rising temperatures or gas accumulations. Whether this translates into a risk of eruption or simply a reorganization of geothermal systems remains to be seen. The shutdown has also opened the door for important conversations about preparedness. The last major caldera eruption at Yellowstone was a prehistoric event, but the region has experienced smaller hydrothermal explosions, sudden violent releases of steam and debris that can be lethal within short radii. These are poorly understood but can occur without much warning. The presence of new ground fractures could increase the likelihood of such events in localized zones, prompting a re-evaluation of hazard maps and visitor access protocols even after the park reopens. At the federal level, agencies are coordinating to ensure that communication channels remain open and that any changes in Yellowstone's status are promptly shared with the public. The National Park Service, in coordination with the USGS and FEMA, is reviewing contingency plans that include evacuation procedures, public alert systems, and emergency response coordination. These measures may sound extreme, but in a place like Yellowstone, they are essential. Meanwhile, the scientific instruments installed across the park, seismographs, gas sensors, thermal cameras, are feeding live data to command centers where geologists are working around the clock. Every tremor, every shift in gas levels, every thermal fluctuation is being scrutinized. The question on everyone's mind is whether these cracks are part of a short-lived episode or the prelude to something more significant. Only time and data will provide clarity, but until then, vigilance remains the rule. The natural world has its own rhythms, often inscrutable and unmoved by human timelines. Yellowstone is one of the few places where those rhythms are visible in real time, in geysers that erupt with boiling water, in mud pots that churn ceaselessly, in the sulfuric breath of fumaroles. It is a place alive with geologic energy, where the earth speaks in steam and stone. The cracks now visible across its surface may be another voice in that ongoing conversation, one that demands respect, caution, and deep listening. No one can predict exactly what will happen next. The possibilities range from a simple stabilization of conditions, where the cracks cool and close without further consequence, to more dramatic shifts that alter the park's landscape or geothermal systems. For now, the closure remains in effect, and teams continue their work under tight protocols. Each discovery, each data point, adds to a picture that is still forming, still unclear. What is certain, however, is that Yellowstone has once again reminded us of the power that lies beneath our feet, a power that, while hidden, can surface at any time. As teams continue to examine the fresh fractures in Yellowstone, attention is turning to areas that have long been overlooked or considered stable. Remote regions of the park, those not commonly visited by tourists or even park staff, are now being swept with high-resolution imaging equipment, seismographs, and soil gas analyzers. One of the unexpected realizations coming from this incident is how much of Yellowstone remains relatively unexplored when it comes to subsurface activity. Beneath its surface lies a network of faults, hydrothermal conduits, and geological structures that are now being considered with a renewed sense of urgency. The cracks have in many ways catalyzed a deeper scientific reassessment of the region's long-term monitoring strategies. Even before the emergence of this new activity, Yellowstone's subsurface complexity was already a topic of academic debate. The supervolcano is not a single, isolated feature but part of a massive interconnected system influenced by both local and regional tectonics. The crack formations could be the result of interactions between this ancient volcanic system and newer fault lines or stress corridors developing under changing tectonic pressures. This has opened up discussions among geophysicists about whether what we understand as Yellowstone's primary magma chamber may have satellite branches or secondary magma pockets applying pressure in new locations. These theories, once considered speculative, now have tangible surface evidence that makes them worthy of rigorous examination. The thermal energy driving Yellowstone's geysers and hot springs is immense, and it creates constantly shifting conditions underground. Under normal circumstances, geothermal pressure vents safely through established channels. Steam seeps out through geysers and boiling water pools in acidic basins. But the discovery of ground cracks may suggest that pressure is seeking new paths of escape, which can destabilize surrounding rock. If those newly formed cracks provide low-resistance pathways, they can redirect underground steam and gas. This rerouting could, in turn, depressurize old geysers while forcing new thermal features to emerge in unexpected places. Such changes might not only reshape the landscape, but also alter water chemistry and ecosystem dynamics throughout the park. One of the more immediate concerns is the possibility of phreatic explosions, violent steam-driven eruptions that occur when superheated water comes into contact with cooler groundwater or surface-level rock. Unlike volcanic eruptions, these explosions don't involve magma, but can be just as destructive. They typically happen with little warning and can throw rocks, ash, and steam over a wide area. In Yellowstone's history, several such explosions have left scars, deep craters and debris fields, and many of them occurred without prior seismic activity. The newly discovered cracks could provide new zones of vulnerability for such explosions to occur if pressurized steam accumulates below the surface. The ecological implications of the closure and underlying geological activity are equally compelling. Yellowstone is home to diverse habitats ranging from alpine meadows to dense forests and hydrothermal wetlands. Even slight changes in the park's geothermal profile can alter plant and animal behavior. Some species depend on warm ground or steam-heated rivers for survival, especially in colder months. A redirection of thermal energy, for instance, if geysers go dormant or new thermal fields emerge, could disrupt these delicate balances. Bison, elk, and wolves, all of which rely on specific migratory patterns or thermal refuges, may be affected by shifts in ground temperature or water chemistry. Wildlife corridors may also be disrupted if thermal zones expand or become more volatile. Animals instinctively avoid unstable or steaming ground, and if new hotspots appear along migration routes or near grazing areas, it could alter movement patterns that have existed for generations. Additionally, microbial life that thrives in Yellowstone's extreme environments, some of the most unique organisms on the planet, could face extinction or displacement. Many of these microbes form the foundation of geothermal ecosystems and play a critical role in nutrient cycling. Cracking of the surface and the introduction of new hydrothermal conditions could sterilize certain areas or allow invasive species to take root. The scientific community has taken this moment as an opportunity to test emerging technologies. Robotic ground crawlers, for instance, are now being deployed to navigate narrow crevices and gather data where human access is impossible. These machines can measure temperature, gas content, and even take microscopic images of soil layers inside the fractures. Meanwhile, satellite radar interferometry is being used to detect even the most minute changes in elevation across the entire caldera. These datasets combined offer a never-before-seen level of detail about how Yellowstone breathes and shifts on a daily basis. The cracks have, unexpectedly, opened a window into processes that usually remain hidden beneath many kilometers of solid rock. The psychological effect on those involved in the research cannot be underestimated either. Many geologists, volcanologists, and ecologists have spent their entire careers studying Yellowstone from the lens of gradual change. This sudden disruption has forced a paradigm shift in how they perceive time and risk in the park. Where once the focus was on slow-moving uplift or gas diffusion, attention has turned toward the immediacy of surface deformation and unpredictable crack development. It has made clear that while Yellowstone is typically slow in geological terms, it is still capable of sudden, dramatic transformations. At universities and research institutions across the country, there is a renewed push to fund and prioritize studies related to supervolcanoes. Yellowstone, often regarded as a one-in-a-million case, is now the focus of broader conversations about how other seemingly dormant or quiet volcanic systems might exhibit warning signs. Comparative studies are being initiated with other caldera systems such as Long Valley in California, Taupo in New Zealand, and Campi Flegrei in Italy. The idea is to use Yellowstone as a case study, a kind of natural laboratory, to better understand the onset of instability in other high-risk volcanic systems worldwide. Remote sensing aircraft are also playing a significant role in monitoring the situation. Equipped with LiDAR, light detection and ranging, and hyperspectral imaging technology, these aircraft can detect surface changes down to a few centimeters and identify thermal shifts invisible to the human eye. Their flyovers have revealed additional hairline fractures branching out from the main crack systems, some of which extend into regions previously thought geologically quiet. This suggests that the current deformation may be part of a broader pattern rather than a localized event. Mapping these extensions is a top priority, as it may redefine the known boundaries of geologic stress within the park. Cultural and historical considerations have also surfaced. Indigenous communities such as the Shoshone, Crow, and Bannock tribes, who have deep ancestral ties to the Yellowstone region, view the land through both spiritual and ecological lenses. For many, the park is more than geology. It is sacred ground. News of the cracking has prompted responses that blend concern with prophecy, as oral traditions have long described Yellowstone as a place of fire and transformation. Tribal leaders have called for inclusion in monitoring efforts, both to protect sacred sites and to offer traditional ecological knowledge that could provide new perspectives on the changes underway. From a logistical standpoint, the closure has triggered cascading complications. research permits have been suspended, tourism revenue has dried up, and infrastructure maintenance has halted. Roads and boardwalks that were already under stress from the park's thermal features are now considered unsafe in many sections. Engineers have expressed concerns about long-term erosion and instability, particularly in areas where the ground temperature has spiked unexpectedly. There is also the challenge of how to eventually reopen the park safely. It may not be as simple as waiting for the cracks to stop forming. Structural assessments will need to be conducted at every point of visitor access, from trails to lodges. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us? What are your thoughts on Yellowstone shutting down? Do you think it's about to erupt? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.